Rhythm games are quite the interesting genre to look at. They've always had a bit of a strange reputation from what I've seen, and have moved in and out of being a more popular thing or just a niche community. From being seen by most as exclusive to arcades, to becoming the next big thing everyone knew, to falling to the wayside with only a few staying popular, to what seems like a modern renaissance for rhythm games. It's a strange history that could easily fill up a whole video on its own, yet it's kind of weird that it even has had this rise and fall in terms of mainstream appeal. At least here in the West, as I know the genre is much more lively in terms of Japanese developers. But rhythm games seem like they should be the most mainstream appealing thing ever. Playing along with music seems like something that anyone could get behind. But whether due to marketing, the divide between Western and Eastern rhythm game audiences, or the complexity of many rhythm games, it's always been a genre that's sat a bit on the sidelines. Yet, even if the Western mainstream dropped it for a bit, rhythm games have one of the most dedicated and strong communities I've ever seen. Dedicated players that push their skills with these games to the very limits, and passionate people who manage to keep these games alive with content forever. Rhythm games are a case where if one gets a fan base most of the time, it will never truly die. And that attitude of never dying has spread to the genre as a whole, as rhythm gaming has entered back into the mainstream's eye, with several notable titles such as Friday Night Funkin' releasing and showing the world the passion of this genre. Plenty of incredible rhythm games are releasing, and lots of games are taking elements of rhythm games to make incredible experiences. I absolutely adore rhythm games, even if a lot of them are things I can't quite get into due to their core gameplay. But there are plenty of titles that I absolutely love and can spend so much time on, such as Rhythm Heaven. And amongst this new boom, there is one title that caught my eye specifically. One that manages to take elements from my favorite games of this genre and somehow improve upon them to create an incredible experience. The game in question is a small indie title by the name of Rhythm Doctor. Rhythm Doctor was developed by the small team 7th Beat Studios, a small team based in Malaysia originally just composed of 2 college kids, though more joined as the game went through development. The studio is made almost entirely to make this one game, as evidenced by the name, a game that would teach musical theory concepts invisibly. The game was originally released as a Flash prototype in 2012 and already found success with an IGF nomination. The game has been in development ever since, with only a slight stop in development as the team also created another rhythm game known as Dance of Fire and Ice. The game released into early access in February of 2021, and despite being full of content and able to be a full game on its own, it's still being developed to flesh out the experience. As for the game itself, it describes itself as a one-button rhythm game inspired by titles like Rhythm Heaven. The game follows you, an unnamed intern at the Middle Sea Hospital, who has entered into the new Rhythm Doctor program. You work with your 2 fellow doctors to treat the strange patients of the hospital through the power of music and rhythm. Each patient has their own gimmicks and tricks up their sleeve, from strange time signatures, offbeats, polyrhythms, and tons of other musical concepts. It's up to you to handle the stress of the job in order to help all of these people. The early access has been released to tons of praise and love, as it's found favorable reviews from both professional outlets and especially its community, which has already begun to support the game so much through modding. It's pretty much set to be a runaway success for the devs in my eyes. So let's dive into this game and figure out what makes it worm its way into my heart like a deadly virus. Let's discuss why Rhythm Doctor is one of my new favorite games in the genre. I absolutely love rhythm games, as I said before, though I have one personal problem when it comes to this genre. I cannot get into a lot of games due to just pure skill issues on my part. Rhythm games are often known for being tough as nails with high skill ceilings for their communities, and this is one of their strongest aspects. Rhythm games are the kings of taking basic gameplay concepts and pushing them to their absolute limit that demands absolute perfection from the player's reaction skills. Take any rhythm game and you can probably find high-level gameplay that looks like it shouldn't even be humanly possible. And there lies my personal issue. So many rhythm games ask for too much. There's lots of titles such as Osu or 4-key type games that I want to get into but just can't, as gameplay is just too complicated for me. And I know that probably sounds strange with how simple these systems are, but it's more so that the games ask for technical skill and concentration more than anything else. It's a matter of paying attention to charting and having the skill to react to it, rather than paying attention to the music or playing along to it. It's hard to ever enter a flow state in my experience, as while they do go along with the music, going along with the music isn't the aspect you're able to focus on without being intimately familiar with what inputs it will ask for. And while some games are better than others in this regard, it always ends up being an issue for me when reaching those higher levels of play. Once again, it's a very personal issue, but it feels hard to play along to music and actual rhythm with these more technical rhythm games. They ask for mastery not of rhythm, but of reaction speed and precision. And this is absolutely the intended experience for some, and I am absolutely not knocking it as its own kind of fun. I absolutely see the appeal in this type of mastery and challenge. It's just that it's not the aspects I want in my ideal rhythm game. I want games that challenge me to focus on the music and flow with the rhythm naturally. And that's why Rhythm Doctor immediately caught my eye with its gameplay. The game advertises itself as being inspired by Rhythm Heaven, the king of this other branch of simple input rhythm games, as I like to call them. Rhythm Heaven is a game I have absolutely adored due to how its simple inputs with only 1 or 2 buttons allow for the other aspects of a rhythm game to shine through, with simple timing and playing along to the rhythm. It's absolutely a lower level rhythm game, and I won't pretend it's on the skill level of stuff like 4-keys or Osu, but it just shines in the aspects I mentioned before. Beyond Rhythm Heaven's personal strengths of sheer creativity and chaining together its games, the simple input style it has allows for that sense of flow to shine through. In these games, since you already know what inputs it wants, you can simply follow along to the music and enter a flow where you know what to do more so from just listening rather than any visual cues. A lot of these minigames could easily be played blindfolded, and that sense of musical gameplay is what I adore so much. And Rhythm Doctor takes this formula and somehow makes it even better by keeping this simplicity and flow state, yet adding enough complexity to where those higher levels of play are still somewhat possible. Rhythm Doctor's core gameplay is the main thing most people will know about it, as it's a very interesting premise. It's a very simple system where you only have to hit 1 key on every 7th beat, going along with the lines on a heartbeat monitor. The 7th beat aspect is interesting sounding enough to draw a lot of eyes to it. It's incredibly simple to understand as well, as nearly anyone can get the idea of counting down to 7, and getting those precise beats is very satisfying. But while it starts simple, it quickly adds a lot more to it. Of course, there's the aspect it advertises with needing to keep the 7th beat despite visual and audio aspects throwing it off, but honestly this ends up being the least interesting way they change it up to add more challenge, although it's still rad as heck when they do it. A lot of the ways they change up gameplay come from adapting to the music and the beat itself, as it will add in offbeats where despite hearing nothing, you still gotta remember it's there, to swinging beats where it just counts differently, to keeping track of multiple counts for satisfying multi-beats, to just changing up the entire gameplay system from having a system of holding it down, to switching to a basic 1-2 rhythm for a whole chapter. All of this allows for much more complex levels in the late game as they combine all of these aspects together, yet it always stays easy to understand and follow, where you can just play along to the rhythm and flow rather than needing to mostly pay attention to charting. And while this does sound like a lot, the game manages to expertly ease the player into all of it at a good pace. A lot of the mechanics, such as offbeats, end up feeling completely natural after their introduction, and not even register for the player a lot of the time, yet still allow for more interesting patterns for levels. And the way these all mix together is also just really great, as it makes for a great challenge of keeping track of all these different rhythms that manage to come together with the actual music. It just comes together so beautifully in ways you wouldn't expect to work. And, as if all this wasn't enough, turns out all of this comes from musical theory that you learned without even realizing it. The game is made to teach rhythm theory invisibly, so all of these mechanics are actually just stuff like polyrhythms, hemiolas, and different time signatures that the game is teaching just without using the big scary names. It doesn't exactly leave the player super knowledgeable on the theory, yet allows for a much more natural comprehension hearing the music in the game. It makes one much more aware of the rhythm patterns when they listen to it when they might not have been able to make it out before. But beyond all the design stuff of how it introduces complex mechanics and is secretly making you learn, the gameplay just feels absolutely incredible to play. Like any rhythm game, it's just so satisfying to hit those precise inputs to the beat and just enter that flow state where you go along with the music. It's just one of those things that isn't easy to break down with words, but just God, it feels so satisfying to just go through these levels bopping my head to the beat. Like I said before, thanks to the simplistic input system, you can get those moments of just getting in tune with the rhythm of a song and just understanding the inputs intuitively. And God, it's just so satisfying when you get those moments of pure understanding. Yet, despite all of that simplicity, it manages to use all the mechanics I mentioned before to get a decently high skill ceiling you don't usually see from Rhythm Heaven inspired games. But levels here can honestly get really difficult, yet it's never due to a lack of reaction speed or being able to keep up. It's just that the rhythms and things you need to keep track of just get more complex. The challenge comes from being able to get in tune with the music and the actual rhythm. And while it never reaches the level of more hardcore rhythm games, it definitely manages to push its mechanics further than Rhythm Heaven ever does. And it manages to balance that mix of simplicity and complexity even more, as the options for difficulty are really great. While some of the later base stages can get pretty difficult, especially with the final boss, none of them are too difficult for a casual player. But if you do well enough on these easier songs and demonstrate your understanding of the mechanics and principles, you get the ability to challenge yourself with night shifts, which are either remixes or new harder songs that push the existing mechanics further, like I just explained before. While it may seem like just a simple bonus level mechanic, it is just great that they cater to skill levels with letting less experienced players move through base stuff even with screw-ups, and offering those who are already skilled or hone it enough the option of more challenge. This all adds up to become a game with an absolutely perfect difficulty curve that the players themselves can control. Though all of this is only possible because the music allows for this perfect flow state of rhythm. So let's discuss that music and the other artistic aspects of the game. Rhythm games are obviously nothing without their music. After all, the whole game is supposed to be about enjoying said music and playing along to it. A rhythm game without a good score is kinda dead in the water, so it's a good thing Rhythm Doctor knocks it out of the park with its OST. Despite the strange system of 7th beats, it doesn't seem to have hindered the team's ability to create wonderfully varied tracks that are a joy to listen to. This is usually where I talk about the OST's style and how it helps set the tone for the game, but Rhythm Doctor doesn't really have a set style it sticks to for its music, and it's very good for a rhythm game like this. While some games such as Paraba or Crypt of the Necrodancer choose to be more consistent with their style to make a strong identity for themselves, it can have a lot more for a rhythm game to stay more varied, since making each song more unique makes the level that it works around more unique as well. And that principle especially applies to Rhythm Doctor, thanks to how it plays around with using musical concepts for what is their level design. By creating songs that sound different from each other, they naturally create new challenges for the player. The game design and music work hand in hand to create a rhythm game where making a varied score isn't a challenge to work into the gameplay, and instead makes for easy ways to spice up level design. And oh boy, do they use that well when it comes to the score. While you can definitely feel a lot of the mostly electronic influences throughout the score, songs vary wildly when it comes to genres, from techno to nice jazz to lo-fi to folk to soft piano to even a full-on musical. The natural challenge, aside from gameplay aspects that Rhythm Doctor systems make not a worry at all, would be being able to work with so many styles and make them all still sound good. But the composers handle it with ease, and they're all composed excellently. Because aside from being so varied, they also all absolutely slap. I don't think there's a single track that I don't enjoy listening to outside of the game, even if some of them are more basic or obviously gameplay focused. I'm no musical expert, so sadly I can't exactly break down why they all work like I can with the game design, but they all have such lovely compositions to them and flow with perfect energy for each song. But Rhythm Doctor does have a trick up its sleeve that I wasn't expecting it to pull off so well. As well, it has plenty of incredible instrumental tracks you'd more so expect. It also has plenty of vocal tracks that are performed excellently. These are way better than they have any right to be, with cleverly written lyrics that tell really beautiful stories, and wonderful performances from the singers. And more surprisingly is that they managed to still make it all work perfectly as levels. These are absolutely some of the game's biggest highlights, with which I could care less or all the times. While I may not be able to explain it more than song good, hopefully the music can speak better for itself.
Get set, go.
Wish I could write more, careless. Wish I could write more and careless. Write more and careless.
What's better make me understand if there's a way to share together, take
Ready, set, go. Get, set, go.
Most rhythm games would be more than happy to just have this excellent mesh of music and gameplay, and use that with maybe basic visuals. But Rhythm Doctor has more than just music to make itself stand out, as the game also has so much style in its visuals. The game has an excellent pixel art style that's improved greatly since the original. Every character is full of personality in their animations, and also just has really charming designs. The backgrounds are really lovely, and the overall UI is not only functional, but incredibly stylish. It's still a little basic, but all the little things from the satisfying particles from nailing a hit, to the characters growing happy, the heart cracking like an egg could just add so much in terms of spicing up the visuals for extra charm. Yet, once again, it goes above and beyond in terms of style, as they spice up each level amazingly with the visual effects the game has grown known for. Aside from the more flashy effects you get in boss levels, regular levels still get a bit of that visual charm too. It isn't much, but it's incredible how much just simple zooms or camera shaking can add to the feel of these levels. Not to mention the visual effects given to more specific levels, such as how Puff Peach changes its background, or the fade outs in Classy. And then of course there's the boss levels I mentioned before. These are what the game loves to advertise itself with, and oh boy are these a treat. And these levels, aside from one more shift, the game goes all out with insane visual effects that not only make them a feast for the senses, but also screw up with your indicators and force you to work only with your sense of rhythm. While that on its own would be a wonderful addition to the gameplay, the ways they pull it off are insanely creative. Of course, they have the usual stutter glitch effects they show off in the trailer, but they also have some more creative distractions, even more insane glitches, and even some neat technical stuff with freezing or using your windowed game to move about the screen. It's an absolute joy to see these, and especially to play with the extra challenge. Overall, Rhythm Doctor is a perfect package of style, with an incredible OST that nails everything it tries, mixed with an incredible pixel art that manages to break its limits to be the best it can be. The core of Rhythm Doctor with the music, visuals, and gameplay is absolutely incredible. But what about the connective tissue with the story and writing? Let's dive into that. Story and writing isn't exactly something you associate with rhythm games. While there are those rare few that focus a lot more on character, most are much happier simply having everything in a more gamey package with just level selects and such. Even Rhythm Heaven, despite all its colorful personality, follows this style aside from a few crumbs of quirky writing with the cafe or Megamix. But Rhythm Doctor, like with its other aspects, decides to go further than the usual, as this game has a lovely, if a bit basic, story running throughout the game. Obviously, it's a bit fractured and incomplete due to early access, but the quality of the writing and theme still shines through. While the overall plot doesn't get much more complicated than the premise, aside from adding a little bit to one of the characters' stories, the characters you deal with and their individual stories more than manage to make up for it. Even without diving into their mini-plots, just the dialogue in this game is so lovely. Each character has a lot of personalities that are just fun to watch bounce off each other or just be themselves. It already manages to pull you in and make you care a lot more about things, and not just see it all as basic levels. But these characters aren't static, as despite some not getting fully utilized, most of the cast has fun mini-stories that you get to see unfold over the course of their levels. Not only does it give the player more reason to continue playing on to see how things end up, but it gives the cast a lot more depth and makes them feel like more than just excuses for unique levels. While some of these are taken less seriously or sadly given less attention, some of them really manage to stand out and make for more than just fun distractions. Two absolute standout plot points are Cole and Nicole's plot lines and Paige's story. Unlike the others, these are treated a lot more seriously, and even if it's still a bit lighthearted, we get to understand these characters' problems a lot deeper. We get to connect with their struggles from stress, see the ways they handle and cope with all of it, and eventually see the ways they begin to improve and find more happiness. From Cole and Nicole finally finding a break from the stress of feeling stuck and just being happy with each other, to Paige's overwhelming stress and feeling like her job will never be appreciated, being eased as she sees that she really did help out the game's cast. They're really wonderful stories to see play out in their chapters. It's weird to say for a game like this, but seeing these stories play out is honestly a bit touching, especially with how it all comes together for the big finale of Helping Hands, which managed to actually get me feeling a bit emotional. The whole game's theme of finding support and help from others is pulled off really well, despite how little they had to work with. And when the story is more complete with the full game, I can only hope that it will hit even harder then. It's just such a heartwarming story with writing so clearly filled with love and passion. And that passion is felt through the entire game as so much effort was put into every aspect of it. Rhythm Doctor's themes and story hit much harder when you see the parallels between them and the actual development of the game. This is a game that took 8 years to be released as early access, with no idea whether that time would even be worth it or turn out something good. And yet, it turned out incredibly just due to the love and care for the project. And thankfully all that passion paid off, as the game found the same love and helping hands within its community. Rhythm Doctor's writing manages to reflect that heart and soul, something real from the creators, and that allows it to connect in a way that's hard for a lot of games to achieve. And it manages to do that as a rhythm game, a genre where story is almost non-existent a lot of the time, so these praises should ring even louder. But let's finally wrap all this up. Rhythm Doctor has easily become my new favorite rhythm game, managing to beat out its inspiration in my heart. It has absolutely incredible music and graphics, simple yet challenging gameplay that fits my flow playstyle perfectly, and a real heart and soul with its writing and message. And the amazing thing is that it's still only in early access, so this game is going to have even more content and polish when it fully releases. And at that point, it honestly may shoot up to being one of my favorite games, period. Rhythm Doctor is a true showing of what you can do with enough dedication and love for a project. Despite taking so much time to be fully, or I guess partially, realized, it ended up as such an amazing product just due to the underlying passion and love for their game that made them polish it to an absolute shine. I guess in a way, Rhythm Doctor's development story kind of reflects the attitude I described of rhythm gaming as a whole. Perhaps it's small and won't get much attention, but they will dedicate themselves to it till they die out of sheer love. They'll do the impossible and make the most incredible feats out of sheer love. They'll spend 8 years developing a game out of sheer love. Rhythm Doctor has been a large success for an indie title so far, attracting a decent fan base with community content and being widely beloved by almost everyone. I hope that success only grows when the game fully releases. Rhythm Doctor is another indie inspirational story, something to show that no matter how much time it takes and no matter how hopeless it may feel, you can still create the game of your dreams if you dedicate yourself to it and put all your love and care into it. I hope to see more special projects like Rhythm Doctor, where that love and care is seen so raw and powerfully in the future. But that's all for now. See you guys in the next video, wherever that takes us.